We start with the third part of life processes, that is transportation. Now transportation in our body is the transportation of oxygen, the transportation of carbon dioxide, food material and the removal of nitrogenous waste. All this transportation in the body, it is done with the help of a special fluid which is known as blood. Now blood, it is a fluid connective tissue which carries oxygen, carbon dioxide, food material and all the waste material out of the body. Now this fluid connective tissue, it is composed of the plasma, RBC, that is the red blood corpuscles, the WBC, that is the white blood cells and the platelets. All these have a special function. For example, the plasma, it is giving fluidity to the blood. The RBC, that is the red blood cells, they carry the hemoglobin, which is the oxygen carrier of our body. White blood cells, they are the soldiers of our body. Means if we are suffering from any diseases, those particular WBCs, they are helping to kill the pathogens in our body. And the platelets help in the clotting of blood. Means when we are wounded, the clotting of blood is done with the help of these platelets. So every part of the blood, that is the plasma, RBC, WBC, the platelets, all have special functions in our body. Now this blood, it is red in color because of the presence of a special pigment in our body, in the blood, which is known as hemoglobin. You know that this hemoglobin, it is the oxygen carrier and it is important that our hemoglobin level should be maintained in males as well as females. Why? Because it should get sufficient oxygen. If we have sufficient oxygen, only then we can convert that food into amount of energy. So this blood, it is a content of all the connective tissue connecting in our body. Now this blood, it has the various functions, that is, it also regulates the body temperature and this body temperature is to be maintained at a temperature of nearly 37 degrees centigrade. Now blood flows in our body through a pump which is the heart. Now this heart together with the arteries, the veins and the capillaries together, this is known as the human circulatory system. So these capillaries, they are the smallest one cell thick vessels which are carried to the blood to each and every cell of the body. So these tubes and vessels together with the heart, it is known as the human circulatory system. Now this human circulatory system, the main pump of the body is the heart. Now the human heart consists of 4 divisions. These 4 divisions contain the 4 chambers. The upper 2 chambers are known as the atrium and the lower 2 chambers, they are known as the ventricle. The left part of the heart, it contains oxygenated blood and the right part of the heart, it contains deoxygenated blood. Means this heart, it is acting as a double pump, the left hand side and the right hand side. The left pump is carrying oxygenated blood and the right pump, it is carrying the deoxygenated blood. Now the left side of the heart, the pulmonary vein, it is bringing pure blood, oxygenated blood from the lungs into the heart, into this left atrium. From the left atrium, when it contracts, the blood comes into the left ventricle. And now when the left ventricle contracts, this blood flows into the main artery which is known as the aorta. Now this aorta, it carries blood to all the body parts, that is the brains, the arms, the kidney, the intestines, the legs, the trunk of the body. Everywhere the blood is carried with the help of this main artery. And this main artery, it is known as the aorta. So remember, when all the 4 chambers of the heart, they relax, the blood from the pulmonary vein comes into the left atrium. When the left atrium contracts, the blood comes into the left ventricle. When the left ventricle contracts, the blood flows into the whole body through the main artery, that is known as the aorta. Now from the aorta, when the blood flows into the body, this oxygenated blood, oxygen is supplied to all the parts of the body. With the oxygen, the food material is also supplied to all the body parts, and from this blood, it becomes deoxygenated. Means the carbon dioxide from the blood now comes into from all the body parts, it comes into the blood. And now this deoxygenated blood from all the body parts, it again moves into the heart through the vena cava. This is the main vein through which the deoxygenated blood, it flows into the right atrium. When this right atrium contracts, the blood comes, deoxygenated blood, it comes into the right ventricle, and from the right ventricle, the blood flows out into the pulmonary artery. Now this is deoxygenated blood, means it needs oxygenation or it needs purification. Therefore, from the right ventricle, the blood flows into the pulmonary artery, which moves into the lungs. Their lungs, lungs are getting oxygen. Again, this deoxygenated blood, it is converted into oxygenated blood, and this is how the pumping of the blood continuously takes place in the heart. The left pump is for the blood to come into the heart and go into the different body parts, and in the right pump, means the right hand side of the heart, all the blood from the body parts, it is coming into the heart, and from the heart it is going into the lungs. So this is how the body structure takes place. These are the four chambers of the heart: the left atrium, the left ventricle, the right atrium, the right ventricle. So this is how the blood flows. Pulmonary vein, from the pulmonary vein, the blood is coming into the heart. From the heart it is going to the body parts. From the body parts again it is coming into the heart, and then from the heart it is again going into the lungs. So this is how the blood flows from the heart to the body parts, and from the body parts again to the heart, and then to the lungs. So in this way, the left side of the heart, it contains oxygenated blood, and the right side of the heart, it contains deoxygenated blood. Therefore, this four-chambered heart, it is a place where the blood is pumped throughout the body and through the lungs also. So this is how the circulatory system is working. Remember, the arteries, they are very thick. They have got elastic walls, and they have to maintain high pressure. In fact, the veins, they are thin walled because they do not have to sustain such a lot of pressure. So in this way, there is the difference between the structure of the arteries and the veins. Arteries are thick walled and elastic, and therefore they develop blood pressure. Okay, so this is how the working of the heart takes place. So the heart together with the arteries, the veins, the capillaries together, this system is known as the human circulatory system. Okay. Now our heart, it is four-chambered. It has got two atriums, the left atrium and the right atrium, and it has got two ventricles, the left ventricle and the right ventricle. So the heart is four-chambered. Why? Because these four-chambered, because our body needs a lot amount of energy. Why? To maintain the temperature. We are warm-blooded animals, mammals and birds. We are warm-blooded, and therefore we require a high amount of energy. So there is a septum in between the heart. This muscular wall which is present at the center also, this septum which is dividing the oxygenated blood and the deoxygenated blood from each other. Okay. In fact, the frogs or the amphibians like the lizards, they do not need such a highly purified blood because they are cold-blooded. The body temperature depends upon the environment. Moreover, fishes, they have only two chambers, and they respire with the help of gills. Okay, so that is the difference between the heart of the mammals and the amphibians and also the fishes. Okay, now so remember that the heart, it is a double pump, it undergoes double circulation. Okay, now you must have heard that sometimes we develop blood pressure. Now what is blood pressure? Now you know that the arteries in our body, they develop more amount of, they relax and contract. This relaxation and contraction of the arteries, it leads to a pump. It leads to beating of the heart, and beating of the heart, our heart pumps for nearly beats for 70 to 72 times per minute. So this is the rate of relaxation and contraction of the arteries which takes place, with the help of which we can find out our blood pressure. The normal blood pressure, we generally say that the lower is 80 mmHg and the higher is 120 mmHg. Now why this blood pressure takes place? So blood pressure, the force which the blood exerts on the walls of the blood vessels, this is known as blood pressure. This blood pressure is more in the arteries than in the veins. When the arteries contract, this is known as ventricular systole, and this systolic pressure is high. It is 120 mm of Hg. Okay, and when these arteries they relax, this is known as ventricular diastole, and this ventricular diastole is low. It is 80 mm of Hg. So in this way, this blood pressure, when it is normal, it is 80 at the lower side and 120 on the higher side. Okay. Now when the blood pressure it is found out with the help of a special instrument which is known as the sphygmomanometer. The sphygmomanometer is used to find out the blood pressure. Okay. Now the high blood pressure, those who have high blood pressure, they are said to have hypertension, and such hypertension it is because of the constriction of the arterioles. Means the arteries they are constricted because there is fat deposited in these particular arteries. Okay, so this is called hypertension. And besides the blood, just as blood is a connective tissue which is helping in the transportation of all the oxygen and carbon dioxide in our body, in the same way there is one more fluid which is known as the lymph, which it is present between the tissues, and therefore it is known as the tissue fluid. So lymph or tissue fluid, it comes out of the pores of the small capillaries. Capillary layers is very thick, it is only one cell thick. Okay, so that wall it is coming out from the pores of those capillaries, and that lymph which is coming out, it is known as the tissue fluid. It is present between the tissues and it is doing the same work just as the blood is transporting proteins and fats. In the same way, this lymph also it is storing fats. The extra fat from the intestine it is stored in the lymph. Okay, so this is how the lymph also carries the digested and absorbed fat from the intestine. Okay, so this is all about the transportation of blood in our body, which is done with the help of the human circulatory system. Remember children, you should be able to draw the diagram of the heart and also the diagram to show that how the blood is transported between the body, the heart and the lungs, and the difference between the oxygenated and the deoxygenated blood.